Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you all. Thank you so much for joining our July JES Leadership Training Series. And for the rest of the next 2 months, this is kind of our tagline, innovate or stagnate. And I'd like to personally welcome you. I'm Dr. Fatima Bustos-Choi, Director for Training and Development for COFACC. I'm happy to see you all this morning, this noontime. Thank you for joining our series today. I think you're in for a great training. I'd like to welcome you all again. Thank you. Here's our program flow. We're going to do some welcome and opening remarks. Just go over our Zoom house rules. Then our founding president, Jerry Pallone, will welcome everyone as well. And we'd like for you to share your answers to a warm-up question that we have, actually questions. And then I'll share the purpose of the workshop and then have the pleasure to introduce our workshop presenter. After his presentation, we are going to open it to a Q&A since I think a lot of the concepts and principles are going to be applicable to all of you. Opening it to a broader group rather than breakout groups would be most appropriate for our session today. And then we'll do a workshop summary, announcements, and adjourn. That's our program for today, our flow for today. Okay. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Jerry Pallone, our founding president for COFACC, for his welcome remarks. Okay, Jerry.
Morning. Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. Good morning to everyone. I'm sorry I cannot turn on my video at this point in time. I'm under dental treatment, so I hope you don't mind if I just speak on audio. But anyhow, thank you for once again responding to our invitation. Every single month we do this training, John E. Swing leadership training, to really give a good training workshop session for each and every leader of our chambers. COFACC is destined really to upgrade the skills. We are creating capacities within each organization, organizationally, and to make sure that our leaders are ready for the next level of engagement that we are expecting each and everyone, moving towards getting more acquainted with the mainstream chambers of commerce all over the US. Actually, ACCE is at the forefront, or the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, of which COFACC is a member of. They're really at the forefront of upgrading the different levels of each chamber. Whatever maturity stage you are into, you will definitely benefit from these training programs. And we are really privileged to have this pool of trainers from ACC doing our trainings on a monthly basis. So stay tuned, guys. We engage during the question and answer. We don't have a breakout session, as explained by Dr. Fatima, but try to list down all the questions that you have for Kyle. And we have an awesome training for today. So thank you so much again, from all chambers all across the country. We welcome you on this training program. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to share our workshop purpose. We have three. One is to how to innovate and optimize social media into a viable and strategic business tool for increasing chambers' social network. The second is how to use content strategy to talk about business problems as the most efficient way to serve your members. And then the third is optimize chamber exposure, visibility, and connectivity for enhancing membership acquisition, retention, and experience. So pretty powerful, goals for our workshop today. and who's going to lead us through this process. Allow me to introduce our guest speaker, who is a marketing strategist and former director of business development for the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce for more than a decade. So that's a great deal of experience. And recognized as the 2000 Chamber Staff Person of the Year for the Western Association of Chamber Executives. In 2008, he created chamberpeople.com, and the largest online social network dedicated to chambers of commerce. And he is also the creator of the Member Sales Engine, an online membership sales module for associations. So lots of innovation in terms of the use of technology and social media. His innovations have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, and his book, Remembership, I love that, New Thinking for Tomorrow's Membership Organization, is fueling transformations in many North American membership organizations. It is with great pleasure to introduce to you our guest speaker and trainer, Mr. Kyle Sexton. He is a trainer also for the ACCE. This is the Association of Chambers of Commerce Executives. Trainer for them, Think Strategies. And so without further ado, I'd like to turn this over to Kyle. Thank you so much, Kyle, for being with us and for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and practical tools for us to optimize social media.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima. I appreciate that so much. It's really great that you conduct your leadership training programs in this way to get some engagement early on. And what Joan had posted in the chat, I think is so relevant in terms of your question about your favorite social media and your least favorite social media platforms. Her quote was, "I think social media platforms are constantly changing, so I do not have a favorite." That is the problem, is it not? That is the problem. The social media platforms are constantly changing. Their algorithms determine whether or not what you post gets seen by anyone. That is not good for you. It's not good for your brand. It's not good for your business or your chamber. So how can we take control back of social media? How can we make social media work for us and turn social media into business media? Well, this is something that I've been taking on in my career since about 2008. When I launched chamberpeople.com, it was a social network exclusive to chambers of commerce. Now, even at the time when we were launching private social networks, not just for chambers, but not just for the chamber industry, but also for specific chambers, members would say, "Really? One more social network? Do we need another social network?" And now, 15 years later, almost 15 years later, we're still just getting inundated. Everything has gone social. And now it's really important to remember that just about any website that you're on has a social component to it. It is the cookies. Every time we go on a new website and we accept the cookies, those cookies are little notifications to let you know that that the website is talking to Facebook and other platforms. And so understanding that all of this is all connected. Now, we don't have to look in the background and understand how it all works to understand what you can do to make it work for you. So today we're going to take that first question that Dr. Fatima asked, and that is, what's your favorite social media platform? What's your least favorite social media platform? And we're going to set that aside because I want to talk to you today about the original social media platform, the one that is not or that is the least affected by any algorithms. And this is your content and where you put it. So with that big tease, I want to share my screen, and I have some visuals that I've prepared for you. And this is one of my favorite talks that I do. I'm so glad that we get to start with this talk together today. And I do believe I'll be with you next month too. And we're going to take some of the concepts that we talk about here, and we're going to apply it to some other aspects of your chamber. But today, we're going to focus specifically on attracting your members with content and turning social media into business media, taking control of it, and taking some of that, taking some of the content that you're focused on some social media platforms and making a tweak so that you can make it the most effective that it could possibly be. The goal, of course, is to grow your chamber. But here's the problem. When we stop talking about our members' problems, we become irrelevant. And so in our social media platforms and actually in our content overall, we want to be talking about things that are relevant to our audience, current problems that they have. And so if you haven't looked at what your chamber does and said, and asked the question, is this still relevant? And is it still relevant to whom is it still relevant? This is as good a time as any to do that. The best time is 2 years ago, because the changes that you made 2 years ago are fully rolling in right now. And the right time to make any change for your chamber is probably 2 years ago, no matter what time we're talking about. Even 5 years ago, the best time was 2 years before that. So if there's anything at all that you take away from this presentation, is this quote right here, that when you stop talking about your members' problems, you become irrelevant. Now, everything I share with you today is business stuff. I'm going to put a chamber vocabulary to it, but this applies to your business, to your members' businesses, and to the business of the chamber equally. And these are internet rules, and many of you are actually familiar with them and have gone far beyond them, but sometimes we get a little too deep into drinking the Kool-Aid that Twitter and Facebook would like for us to drink, and believing that they are the grand masters of all of your content. So truth be told, when you post your content to Facebook and Twitter, they're telling you with their algorithms how much they care about your content, and I want you to take control back. So how do we do that? Well, I believe that it's all in talking about the problems and where you talk about the problems. So first, we're going to talk about what the problems are that chamber members are facing. I created a list of what that I call a dozen daily dilemmas, and we're going to go over those dozen daily dilemmas. These are the problems, the businesses that I sit in front of from a chamber consultant standpoint, and I still go out and I sit in front of hundreds of chamber members per year and get firsthand information from them about what's keeping them up at night. So that's what we're going to talk about first. Secondly, we're going to talk about where to put content where you're going to share what you're doing, or how you can, or how members can engage with by solving their own problems, how they can be part of a solution that helps create a stronger community. Okay, so that being said, let's dive into the big one that everybody is talking about in terms of business problems, and it's talent and workforce. Where do we get our next hire? Talent and workforce are separate because talent is generally referring to specialized talent, and it's often referred to in the healthcare profession and engineers and other professions where there's a whole lot of education. And employers try to steal them from other parts of the country. I remember sitting in front of an architecture and engineering firm. Kind of unusual to have an architecture and engineering firm all into one. They're most often separate, but this architecture firm was actively involved in mentoring college students at some of the top engineering schools in the country. Yes, they have an aspirational and ideological need to want to be involved in mentoring students, but what they're really doing is they're heading off their transactional need at the pass, and that is to say they are actively filtering out the college students who are about to graduate, finding the ones that are going to be a good culture fit for them, and wooing them into into their firm before they graduate. And this is the sort of aggressive talent acquisition that some firms are doing. And these firms are the types to join chambers of commerce. So the workforce is much different in that in most references to workforce, there is either community-based training to prepare for that particular job, or there is on-the-job training for this. I'm working with several communities right now across the United States and Canada to implement workforce and trades signing days, where we can recognize the great talented young people graduating from high school that are not going into a four-year college or institution of higher learning. They're going directly into the workforce, into a trades workforce training program, like an apprenticeship or a paid internship, going directly from high school graduation into these programs. So talent and workforce together, I mean, you could easily separate them out, but they're so often referred to together. They are a constant. Now, it used to be that we were mostly talking about this with universities, with manufacturing plants, with medical related and small and large hospitals and medical practices. But as you know, the pandemic has created all kinds of interesting challenges. And so talent and workforce is hitting everybody. But the key to remember here is that different businesses call problems different things. And you're actually not running a chamber of commerce. You're running 4 different chambers of commerce. So this same problem might show up in other areas of this presentation, in this list, because they call it something different. So this is the most expensive of the 3 versions, of this problem that you're going to see, talent and workforce. But I regularly am working with chambers to help build programming for them that addresses talent and workforce. So what else do we have on the list? The other big one in the chambers of commerce is marketing and visibility. How can you help me expose what I offer to more businesses or consumers so that I can sell more of my product? So not only am I a consultant for chambers of commerce, but I'm also a member of my local chamber of commerce. In fact, I'm a member twice. I have 2 memberships, one for my consulting business as a courtesy to that chamber, and another that is that I do copywriting, storytelling, and offer creation for independent businesses. And so I have a separate membership for those because it's a different audience. Marketing and visibility, different audiences have different types of businesses have different needs for their own marketing and visibility. And so what I find, there's a lot of chambers they focus on treating businesses the same, like they're all the same. But it's really important to recognize the vocabulary that different types of businesses are using. Some, in terms of marketing and visibility, some businesses really respond well, and you see them actively participating in community sponsorships. This is an area where we can help. You have events and programs that they can sponsor, where you're doing all the heavy lifting, and they just get to show up and take advantage of the audience that you have curated for them. Okay, so marketing and visibility. So sponsorship is a niche within marketing and visibility. Advertising is another one, and so it's important to recognize and identify the different words that people are using. Networking is a word that people use sometimes when they mean marketing and visibility. Sometimes they use networking that means sales. And so depending on who you're talking to, networking may or may not be a high value problem. If they think that networking is a social activity, this is a low value problem that they're trying to solve. And unfortunately, networking, with chambers of commerce, used to be known as the #1 source of networking. And now we're not, period. As much as we might like to be, the word networking has changed meaning on us because of all of the people who have brought the level of networking down by adding the social component. So now we get my least favorite social networking platform, LinkedIn. It should be my favorite, but my least favorite is LinkedIn because they've taken social networking and driven it down to now anybody can email me through LinkedIn and make a sales pitch to me, even though I haven't shown any interest in what they offer, even though we just connected, and they're going straight from we just connected to I'm going to try to sell you something. So marketing and visibility means different things to different people. Branding and positioning, I find that this is a term that business firms use, collections of professionals that start a business together, not usually, and this is definitely something that that employers also use. So employers of, we'll say 5 to 10 might use a term like marketing, but employers of, let's say, 20 to 25 or more, and I'm making some generalizations, or business firms like law firms, CPA firms, they might interchangeably use marketing with branding and positioning, but they're different. Sponsorship is more in tune with branding and positioning than general marketing or advertising or sales. So branding and positioning, these are more specific variations of problems that you can help solve in any particular business. And in my other business, Ink Makers, my chamber gives me an opportunity to host an event. And so we rented a theater and we hosted one of the big events that they have. And we had 150 people in the audience. And I was able to position my services because I was the host of the event. It wasn't advertising. It was about positioning. It was about introducing it. Okay. So learning and best practices. This is oftentimes one of the other goals besides sales when people say they want to network. They want to learn best practices, or they want to learn some tips and tricks from people who are more experienced in business than they are. This doesn't often happen eyeball to eyeball. It often happens when you are shoulder to shoulder with someone facing the same direction. So being in a room where you're talking about business topics together and being an audience member, and you're sitting next to someone else and you can strike up a casual conversation. Some people call that networking. I don't. I call that learning and best practices. And these are the problems that people are trying to solve, especially when they are new in business. If they're just now starting their business and they've joined your chamber and they're trying to get into the business community, they might not say this out loud, but this is something that they're trying to do. They're trying to learn best practices from folks who are more experienced in business than they are. And this is definitely a problem that you solve. Leadership and team development is, these are terms that employers use when they develop their people up through the ranks of their business. Much of the programming that chambers of commerce offer can be considered professional development. This training that you're doing right now is by all means professional development. You're learning more, you're getting some different perspectives, you're hearing stories and from different organizations, and you're getting connected with your peers. That is very much in this leadership and team development arena. If you're not tapping into the positioning of your chamber in leadership and team development, you're missing a huge opportunity, because there is a budget that goes along with leadership and development and team development in just about every business that is paying for professional development for their people. They have a budget line item for this. Now, have you ever noticed that businesses rarely have a budget for membership? They rarely do. And only if they have a lot of experience and they have more than one membership in a professional organization will they actually create a category called professional memberships. Otherwise, they put it into something else. Sometimes it's marketing and advertising. Don't let that deceive you into thinking that your chamber's #1 value is in marketing and advertising, because I don't believe that in the least. I believe that the top value for chambers of commerce is really in connecting through leadership and team development. So much money is being spent in this arena. And if you're not having leadership conversations, if you're not incorporating leadership content, both management, direct people management skills, and also leadership soft skills, if you're not talking about it, you're not attracting people who are on that path. Connecting and socializing. And this is a very nebulous, low value area, but it's a problem that people have. And certainly coming out of the pandemic, people feel a need to connect like never before. Jerry and I were talking before we started this conversation, this presentation today about the ACCE convention that's coming up next week that he's going to be attending. There's going to be a lot of connecting and socializing that happens there. And after everybody gets reacquainted, we're going to get back into the professional development that happens there. But there is definitely a need right now to reconvene and and this is an opportunity for every Chamber of Commerce to really start over with their strategic plan and how they implement programming for their organizations. Are we going to try to go back in time and go back to 2019, or are we going to be mindful of the new pace of business and the changes that have taken place and allow people to connect in a different way, other than just going back to our old programming? I'm a huge advocate for barbecuing those sacred cows. Let's those things that you got rid of, or you got a temporary reprieve from them during the pandemic, to ask yourself whether or not those things should come back before you bring them back and go back in time to 2019. The hiring is another word that some businesses use when they're talking about talent and workforce. And these are mostly national brands talk about hiring. They do the cattle call. They want to post to job sites. They buy billboards. They talk about hiring. Hiring is very me focused. When I say me focused, it's very the messenger focused, and it doesn't necessarily connect. Hiring doesn't really connect with the audience. Hiring is very yes, everybody's hiring. So if someone is hiring, they're not necessarily, if they say they're hiring, they're not necessarily distinguishing themselves from everybody else who's hiring. So another version of this is recruiting. And this is not something that people are talking about a lot in terms of talent and workforce and how they fill vacancies in their business. But if they are talking about recruiting, they're not in the same business category as people who talk about hiring. And I'll show you how these are all, how I divide these out. Fundraising is back in a huge way. And lots of you are getting invitations to fundraising events. I was just at one on Tuesday night, and it was a very effective but very small fundraising event. And it takes advantage of the idea that people are looking forward to getting back and reconnecting. They're eager to be involved in their community in an in-person way right now, like never before, and taking advantage of that. So this is definitely a big problem that is being articulated, of course, mostly by those nonprofits and charities in your community. Okay, so that's a very niche problem, but it pops up when we're talking to one of the 4 different business profiles that you serve well. Sales is the for-profit version of fundraising, and certainly sales is a transactional need that lots of businesses have, but how they approach it might be very different. Some are focused more on marketing. Marketing is what gets your phone to ring. This is inbound. Where sales is what you say once you answer the phone, and this is very relational. So with the churn that many businesses have experienced in the last 2.5 years, they're finding that they've got to reset their sales processes. They have new people in these new roles, and with new people in these new roles, they might also have the need to make new connections. And this is certainly where your chamber can help. Succession planning is a different word than hiring, talent, and workforce, but it addresses the same problem. We find that banks, credit unions, and firms that also talk about recruiting, they often categorize it under succession planning. They work on elevating their people through accomplishments and through different metrics of success in their system, in their organization, to elevate and promote people from within. They need to backfill that. They don't necessarily use terms like hiring. They focus more on succession planning and backfilling positions. So we find this terminology used a lot in credit unions and banks and firms that are groups of professionals like architects and engineers and the like. Regulations, still a huge problem in business, was for the last for about a year in 2020. Regulations were hitting businesses very, very hard, no matter where they were in the different business profiles that chambers serve. Previous to that, they were dominant in one particular business profile, the same one that likes to talk about the economy, right? So the folks who like to talk about the economy also like to talk about regulations and how it affects housing, commodities, wages, fuel, raw materials, shipping, the major backups for supplies throughout the economy. These are all issues that fall under that umbrella. Now, what do we do with those dozen daily dilemmas? Well, I like to put them into the categories that help us to better understand what a chamber, to help us better understand that we're not running a chamber. We're actually running 4 different chambers of commerce, and how businesses talk about these problems will allow you to determine where you should talk about these problems and which social media platforms, because as you might have guessed, you've got some, because you all went through this at the top of the hour, talking about what your favorites and your least favorites are. Our members also have favorites and least favorites. And so if you're talking about a problem, a business problem, to an audience that's on a certain platform that isn't connecting with them because you're not talking about it in the right way, you might be talking about the economy when what they want to talk about is, you might be talking about talent and workforce when what they might want to talk about is hiring. So understanding those differences and where they are can be really helpful in your goals and accomplishing your goals. All right, so this is the map to remembership, and this is a tool that I created in 2014, and now thousands of chambers have adopted this structure to better understand their members. And I've taken it to like the nth degree, because I'm a total nerd about chambers of commerce, and I like to really get geeky about what are the forces that work there, and why do some things work for other associations that don't work for chambers. This is really enlightening. So at the top, you'll see it says get something done. These are for aspirational businesses who want to help you accomplish something. They're looking for a transformation in the community, in the economy, in the Filipino culture for you. They may be looking for for a transformation that is not transactional. So that's different than at the bottom of this where it says get something from. That's a very transactional member. Transactional members have to get something from you, or they will go somewhere else to get it. Understanding the differences between the two is going to be really helpful for you. And then once you understand it yourself, if you can teach it to other people who are in your chamber, who are part of your chamber leadership or part of your chamber staff, it's going to really help you to better understand your members. And so when they're talking about business problems, it will also give you a clue as to which profile they're in and how much that problem might be costing them. And so it can help put some some priorities on certain problems. On the right side here, we have those who are involved. On the left, we have those who are invested. It doesn't mean they're invested more. It means they're involved less. So everyone who shows up on here is a member. This is a member tool right here. This is an organizational membership-based tool that we use. So everyone has at least written a check to be part of the chamber to get in. Now, how engaged they are after they write a check for membership determines where on this horizontal axis they might land. So here's an example. Board members show up a lot. I saw that Sherry Pash did a presentation for you on ambassadors last month. Ambassadors show up a lot. Some ambassadors are aspirational and trying to help you get something done, but some ambassadors, I find that most ambassadors are transactional. They're trying to get higher level of visibility by showing up. And for them, that might mean more sales or better brand awareness. But your board members are drinking the Kool-Aid in a much larger way. And so the aspirational nature of your board members puts them squarely up here because they show up, they're highly engaged, and they're more aspirational. They're trying to help you get something done in the community or in your chamber. So that's a major distinction. Now this whole side, this whole involved side is limited. This is a room that is limited in size, and this is not what you want, and it's maybe not even what you believe, that you're not limited in size. But we find that chambers who have plateaued in terms of growth are focused on the right side of this, and not the entire matrix here, not the entire map. The members who can't, won't, and don't show up are on the left side here. The members who can't, don't, and won't show up are on the left side. And if you can provide a way to engage them without showing up, this is the scalable side of your organization, and this is how you can grow. All right, so that was the 3-minute version of that. We'll dive into that a lot more in our next talk, because there's a different ability to invest at each of these different levels. But I'm going to take each of the dozen daily dilemmas now. I'm going to put them in the appropriate quadrants. Learning best practices, connecting and fundraising are in the bottom right quadrant. Marketing, sales, and hiring are terms that are used by businesses in the bottom left quadrant. These are transactional. So if we don't address and solve these problems for businesses, they will go somewhere else to find someone who can. Now, aspirational businesses are different. The leadership development, positioning, and succession planning are terms that are used by businesses such as your board members. And talent and workforce, economy, and regulations are terms that are used by stakeholders, businesses who are larger employers, who have more at stake. And what they really need is for us as chambers of commerce and business associations, we need to approach this group with a different message. Not, hey, we can really help you with these things, but to address businesses who are up here to say, we really need your voice in the work that we're doing. We need you. And we recognize that maybe we need you more than you need us. But they're willing to partner with you, but as chambers. But we have to approach this group very differently than we approach these 3 others. Okay, so this map tells us where these problems are and can give us some insights. Now, how do we address these needs, and how do we engage with these members based on the challenges and needs that they have? Well, this group is not reading your emails, I promise. This upper left quadrant that can't, won't, and don't show up and have aspirational big needs, the best way for you to engage them is through your own personal relationships. So working your own relationships to get into, have a connection to the decision makers in these companies is the best way to prove your value and to get closer to them as potential investors in your chamber, not just members. Service and leadership through your programming is how to engage the upper right quadrant. There are 4 calls to action in any membership organization: attend, join, renew, and serve. So service is this aspirational kind of thing. And you all know this because you run volunteer-driven organizations. And so who we ask to volunteer and for what is really important. And we want to put people in positions of service and leadership where we can where they can exercise their strengths rather than ask them to do something they don't want to do. I have found that if you ask your volunteers to do something they don't want to do, it's also something that they're not good at. There's a direct correlation between the two. So it's not just any service, but it's the aspirational service. Give us advice. Listen to this presentation with us and tell us what you think. Okay, so not call these people, have a conversation with them, and like that. Those are more transactional service opportunities. All right. So events and programs, how we serve the masses of our membership. The bottom right group is what I call the connector, and they will come to anything where we put coffee or beer or wine. And as you know, I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but this group will serve as an audience for any particular topic that you want to put in front of your business community. And then how do we create a sense of community for people who can't, don't, won't show up that are transactional? Well, this has been a problem for many, many years for membership organizations that have these members who are transactional, but they won't participate in your events and programs. Why? Because there are a lot of retail businesses in there. These are what I call the Main Street businesses in the bottom left quadrant. Main Street businesses are focused on what's going on in their physical business. So these are not just restaurants and retailers and hotels and conference centers and museums and sporting events. These are also small medical, like orthodontists, dentists, chiropractors, massage, spas. These are not mobile businesses. These are businesses where they have customers that come to them and they have business hours. And they tend to be more retail focused. So, and they also tend to be fewer B2B businesses in the bottom left quadrant. A lot of consumer-based businesses there. So when you understand that, you know what kind of content you can be creating to better connect with the types of businesses that you want more of. Now, in every single chamber that I look at, we are swimming with these members down here in the bottom right quadrant, and we'd like more in the other 3. Why? Because the people in the bottom right quadrant tend to be the most sensitive to price. They tend to be the most most conscious of investing in you. The others, you can make a much more effective and efficient business case for investing in your chamber because they're more value oriented. They're more value oriented, which means they're willing to invest more to get more or to get different. And so focusing your content on the types of businesses that you want more of can help attract them. Now, where do we do that? Content isn't just limited to that bottom left quadrant. The content about your economy, regulations, talent, and workforce right now could be happening at meetings. The content about leadership development might be happening in a leadership program, but we can also take it and put it into a digital form that lives somewhere on the interwebs. I'm going to tell you where it needs to live first, but we can turn it from your events and programs are content. They're synchronized live content. And when we can take that content and take it out of that live synchronized event or program and turn it into a scalable, non-synchronized or asynchronized, that way people can consume it on their own time. And we can also have content that provides tips and learning and best practices, and content that connects people, and content that helps people fundraise. So all content can help you in all of these different areas. So when I talk about content, I'm talking about articles, graphics, video, and podcasts. And these are all just different types of media. And you may have thought, well, we're not in the media business. And I'm here to say that you are. By articles, I'm talking about your blog, videos, the types of videos that are penetrating any social platform right now are almost all live, or is trending really strongly towards Reels right now. And it's not just TikTok, it's also Facebook with the Reels, and YouTube with the Shorts are also getting into it. And podcasts, yes, podcasts are asynchronized, asynchronous recorded audio content that is also has a huge advantage because it is passive content. It's content that doesn't require your eyeballs. And whereas if you're putting out content in text only, you are eliminating passive content consumption from possibility. And if your content relies too heavily on video or graphic, you're also eliminating the passive possibility. And this is why so many brands are starting podcasts right now, because there's a huge and growing passive content consumption audience. Podcasts are virtually the only way to reach the passive content audience. Now, to me, this all starts with a blog. I don't care what your favorite content social media platform is. The original social media platform is your blog. Your blog contains all of the things that you could post on a social network: the text-based articles, photos and graphics, infographics, videos, and podcasts. They can all live on some other platform, but they first need to live on yours. And this is the mistake that so many chambers and other businesses are making when it comes to their own business media, is they're focused on social media. By changing your frame from social media to business media, you're building your brand. And you're saying that of all the algorithms, the one I care about the most is Google. Of all the algorithms, the one medium that I don't have to rely on any algorithm is email. Email of your content direct to your audience is the way to get around all of the social media algorithm changes that hurt you and your visibility. So taking your blog and having a different approach for your content and making it blog focused, you can fundamentally change how your brand is perceived over time. Most chambers average 3 to 5 articles a week in their email newsletter. Now you might look at that and go, we're not quite to 3 to 5 a week, and that's fine. Maybe you're at 3 to 5 a month. But most chambers are I'm saying most chambers are putting their best content in the wrong places. They're putting it in email only, or they're putting it in social only. And I want you to change that. Anytime you see this icon right here, that's where you'll see that there's an RSS feed. The RSS feed means it's a blog. Blogs allow content to be syndicated throughout the internet and shared more effectively. And that includes to social media platforms. So if you're going to put breadcrumbs out there, I want people to follow those breadcrumbs back to your website, where they might be able to convince them to raise their hand and say, yeah, I'm interested in joining. Now you've got a lead. So that's how we turn social media into business media. But Google is watching your blog. Google is not watching your social content. Your social content that you're putting on Facebook, Twitter, and the other platforms is really helpful to those platforms. But Google is not monitoring that at all, like they're monitoring your blog. Now, you might say, we have a website. Why isn't that sufficient? Well, Google's already indexed your website. They come back once a month and they say, hey, do you got a blog yet? No. Okay, we'll be back next month. The next month they come back and they say, hey, you got a blog yet? And they say, nope. Well, we'll be back again next month. So this month, if you start a blog or you post to your blog, Google's going to come back next month and they're going to say, hey, I see you've got a blog post. We'll be back tomorrow. And that changes everything for Google. So if you find that your visibility isn't what you want it to be, it's because you've focused your best content on platforms that are basically fleeting because of their algorithms. Okay, so Google watches your blog more than they watch anything else. So you updated your event page. Awesome. Google doesn't care. If you updated your event page, you need to put that update on your blog in addition to updating your event page. Why? Because Google watches your blog. Okay, but a blog is not a thing that you have to do. A blog is a place to put the things that you're already doing. A blog is a place to put the content you're already creating. So if you think, gosh, there's no way I have time for a blog, I'm saying that you start with the content you're already creating and you're putting it in your newsletter, you're putting it on social. First, put it on your blog. You've got a newsletter. Inside your newsletter, you've got an article, you've got a column, you've got editorial, you've got an event notification. Awesome. Well, I want you to set it all free. Put it in your blog. Why? Because right now it's in jail. It's in content jail if it's only in your newsletter. Premium brands, the ones that people are willing to invest more in, have free samples where they can see what kind of community is getting engaged. You know, you can see the kind of people who, you can see the people who are in line at Starbucks, right? If I can see the people who are in line, I can say, oh, what's going on over there? Must be good, right? That people want to back a winner. And if they can't see your stuff, except if they're already on your newsletter list, if they're already a member, we want to take it out of that jail. We want to put it in places where people can sample it for free and they can see what you're doing. So too many chambers have kept the same membership mindset for 40, 50, 60 years and say, you can't have access to that because you're not a member. Well, it becomes a catch-22. And they're not going to join because they can't see what you're doing, and you're not going to share with them what you're doing because they're not a member. We've got to break that down. You can do that through content. It's very efficient because it takes the things you're already doing and it puts it on an open, shareable platform, the original social network, your blog. So we want to set it free. The article becomes a blog, the column becomes a blog, the editorial becomes a blog, the event notification becomes a blog. Okay. Then you can take those things and you can send them to Facebook or Twitter or to your favorite or least favorite, and you can not care. Because if they follow the breadcrumbs back to you, it's going to come back to your website. That's where you want them to come. Okay. So brands that blog 16 times or more per month get 3.5 times the natural organic traffic of those brands that post 4 times or fewer. So I just want you to find the content where you're already posting and put it on your blog first. It's super simple to do. All right. So when the pandemic hit, and this is where we're going to pause and take questions here. When the pandemic hit, I took a lot of the training that I do around this topic, and I actually turned it into a service exclusive to chambers of commerce and economic development organizations. I created several different content series that can serve as blogs, and I created them for an evergreen way. Evergreen means it can be used today, tomorrow, or yesterday, and it's still relevant. These are helpful articles designed for chambers of commerce and in different topic areas. You can see all those different topic areas. And just today, we were working on publishing our next series of articles, and it's get us up to the number 230. 230 articles is what we're going to have after we drop this next bundle of 34 articles on Monday. So 230 articles are in this library. So if you're wondering who's going to create the extra content that you need to get to 16, you can consider sources like what I've created, Chamber Today. Chamber Today, you might, if you had to create this content yourself, you might invest $1,000 a month in hiring an editorial and all of that stuff, and finding the people to write all of this content. Now, when I created Chamber Today, my goal was to bring down the cost of content creation for chambers. And we did that. We were able to do it for $1,000 a year. And this content is now available to you at a very affordable rate. And it's an annual subscription. And we're continually adding more and more content. We're going to blow away our goal this year of adding 52 articles a year. We're going to probably hit about 70, 75 articles dropping this year. So 230, a year from now, we expect our 230 article bank of content to be up around 300. So I wanted to share all of that context with you to say, one of the ways that you can turn social media into business media is to get back to the original social network, and that is the blog, because the blog is a thing that is attached to you, that is not subject to the algorithms of social media platforms. So I'll pause right there and see what questions you have or what discussion you'd like to have in response to my presentation. Thanks, everybody.
All right, we're opening up the floor for any questions, comments, insights that you'd like to share.
Miss Fatima, this is Jill. I'd like to share my insight.
All right, Jill first and then Ethel.
Yes. Hi, I'm Jill Lasaka. I'm the chair for the Philippine American Chamber of Commerce, Dallas-Fort Worth. Thank you so much, Mr. Kyle, for sharing your information. So from my experience, like, I've been able to monetize my Facebook, and blogging has really helped me. I did one post one time, and it was about 3 women, Filipinas representing Texas to the Miss USA, and I had like almost 5,000 people viewing it, and it's amazing. And that has really helped connect to my Facebook. So now I'm able to monetize. So I do think that there is a link to use your blogging. It does take money and resources to put that, to think about that. But if you're already in that business, capitalize on it, build on it, and then that will translate into that. So that helps. And I think when your personal brand is more influential, it also helps with the organizations that you represent. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jill.
Wonderful.
Ethel?
This is really very helpful, and I'm really learning a lot. First of all, I'm just using Facebook, and now I'm kind of looking into using the other platform. I'm using, the LinkedIn, but what I'm kind of thinking is getting them integrated so it's less time consuming, and I can actually discipline myself more into doing it regular. The second question is the pricing that you mentioned. Would that be for COFACC with benefits for chamber members or individual chambers?
The pricing is for individual chambers, but I'd be happy to talk to Jerry about some other arrangement that would work for you all. Your first question, Ethel, is around syndication from your blog to social platforms like Twitter and Facebook. And there is some automation that you can do, but I want to warn you that both Twitter and Facebook and the others have started to track the automation software that you're using outside of their platform. And they're giving that content, they're pushing that content down in their algorithms. They'd rather not have that. So if to get you to where you need to be, you need to have some automation, then yes, do that. Where you're posting to your blog and it automatically or automagically, I like to say, will post to Twitter and Facebook. Twitter and Facebook doesn't love that as much anymore. And so some of the sharing, some of the automated sharing that you might consider doing isn't going to be seen as as often as if you actually go in and write a short teaser or brief about the blog that you placed, and then put a link to your blog. Physically doing that is going to be more effective for your own visibility.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Great. Right. Anyone else? You can go ahead and, raise your hand using the icon below. But if not, go ahead and let's see.
Dr. Fatima,
Yes.
Yeah.
just wanted to, I'd like to say I'd like to speak for those who are not techie. And it's kind of be a little bit intimidating when you start talking about RSS feed and blogs and syndicating all this content. I'd like to hear kind of like a bite-sized approach on any, because we have different chambers in here. Some are like established and some are like just starting. So what is a bite-sized approach for them to get started with this?
Great, thank you for the question, Celeste. I think the first thing to do is to know where your blog is. And if you don't know where your blog is, send a note to your website provider and ask them how to access your blog. If you have WordPress, if your website is based in the WordPress platform, you actually have a blog built in native to WordPress. In fact, you've got many blogs if you want. And so on the back end of WordPress, instead of creating a page, you want to create a post. And then you just want to make sure that wherever that post is going, that is your blog. You want to make sure that that is also linked on your site, or, and I think in many best practice cases, I take chamber homepages and I actually make the blog their homepage so that their most recent post is actually showing up right on their homepage. You don't have to do that. You can actually, the nice thing about a blog, and this is where I get techie, is a blog can get syndicated to other pages. So you can leave your blog where it is, and you can ask your homepage to automatically publish the headlines of your 5 most recent blog articles in a section of your homepage. So the most important, the first step is to understand where your blog is and whether or not you have one already. Most likely you do. And I've noticed in the comments that several of you are already blogging. So this is where you can tap into your network of connections and get some help. So I'm gonna call him out. Edwin, I knew Edwin when you were talking about Twitter. I knew that you were an early adopter of blogging, and so your comment didn't surprise me that you've been blogging since the FACC Hollywood's inception. So it looks like you've got somebody with a ton of blogging experience in the room.
I'll follow up. The plug-in, play and plug that you were talking about. When you say play and plug, what does that actually mean? Does that mean we are able to generate as a chamber articles that address the 12 problems of a chamber?
Yeah, I call it the Chamber Today Publishing Plug and Playbook. That means that the articles that are part of Chamber Today, you can copy and paste and publish. Tell people that you wrote it. You can put your name on it. If you've ever heard of white label or private label content, that's what this is. So consider me a writer for you. You can remove my name because my name doesn't mean anything to your audience. In fact, I don't even publish under my name. That's why I use the Chamber Today brand. Put your own name on it, that you wrote it. Customize an article. There's so many different types of articles that you can grab and customize to your use. Let me pull one out here. Family business, handing off the keys to the store to the next generation. This is an article that you can copy, paste, and publish if you know you have multi-generational business owners in your market, in your membership, or something that that your members deal with is multi-generational and business succession planning among family businesses. You can email those members and and email them a copy of this article and say, we're going to publish this article in 2 weeks in our newsletter and on our blog. We'd love to get a quote from you about what your experience has been as a family-owned business and handing off the keys to the next generation. So this is a way to actually have content that's ready to copy, paste, and publish that you can put member stories and you can localize it for your own chamber. So that's what I mean by plug and play. You can literally copy it and paste it and make it your own.
We do have a COFACC newsletter, and I'm just wondering, I know Jerry and Raja, you're here. It sounds like that's actually a great resource.
Yeah.
For, you know, to
I think
use.
we're moving into that direction, Dr. Fatima and also Kyle. We have the Hexagon, which has been launched since 3 months ago, and that's an area where we can still harness and and really make it as an effective blog for COFACC. And that Hexagon is also connected with our unified app, which is called COFACC Bridge, which is accessible to all the members of the various chambers. So we are integrating the entire Filipino-American community in the US into one app if they become users of this. So we're transitioning and moving and migrating towards this app within the next 90 days. That's our goal.
Jim, I think you have a question about copying and pasting articles. Could you go ahead and share that?
Yeah, every time I try to write articles, and then you work on Google Docs or a Word document, it will tell you, I don't know if you guys use the editing function of the document. It will tell you if the words appear in other articles. So for example, if multiple chambers use your articles, I mean, how do you address that as plagiarism?
Well, it's not plagiarism because you're actually licensing this content. And but that's a great question. Thanks for that, Joan. I actually take all of the content that we create and I put it through a plagiarism check because we need to make sure that our content is original and that it's not going to get flagged. Now, what happens when many chambers are using it? Well, if your chamber has a deficit in content creation and this helps you fill that gap, this is better than no content at all. Okay, so this is not as good as you actually creating this quantity of content yourself. It's not. But which organization? Show me an organization that has the capacity to do that. Very few. So this is not the ideal scenario, but it will get you to where you need to be.
Yeah. Does that help, Joan? And I think, as Ethel said, it's using that as a springboard. You know, and as a foundation that can always be expanded upon. But it's usually having nothing is what's so hard. You know, it's creating something from nothing. But now, you know, with your resource, Kyle, that it gives us like food for thought. Just even, you know, again, a springboard for what we could write.
Yeah. Springboard's a great term to think of, and this doesn't have to be content that is shared as it is currently. It can be the inspiration for a podcast.
Yeah.
It could be you could do a Facebook Live with content like this. Read the article, familiarize yourself with the content, and do a Facebook Live and just speak to your audience directly and say, here's something that you might want to think about as a business owner, and to engage people in that way. So the content can be used in a lot of different ways. And chambers that subscribe to Chamber today are using that content in a lot of different ways. Some chambers are using it more for inspiration for their editorial from the chamber president. What should I talk about this week? And here's some great ideas and some content that we have licensed to use. And others, you know, I know a chamber in California that puts out a quarterly magazine. It's almost exclusively content from Chamber today.
Okay, thank you. Paul, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just sent a message to my officer in charge of the Greater Pasadena, Tony. Just sent him a message to follow up on a conversation we had a few months ago about starting a podcast, a video podcasting, basically inviting a new business owner or member, a new member, and talking about their business, maybe a one or two business owners in one segment in one episode, and then we'll do it once a week. So that's more like what we're thinking of doing is the video podcasting. The other thing is that the question is towards Kyle about the contents. I understand that you get a better ranking and when your contents are organic, meaning to say original. So maybe I mean, because I've done this a long time ago, that I've hired writers to do this for me, and so that contents are always different. So how is this? How are your contents? I mean, is it exclusive to the chamber, the COFACC organization, or is it also the same as the other chambers that they're working with?
It's the same content that other chambers are working with, but you can imagine with a bank as large as 230 articles, no one is publishing all 230 articles on the same day. They're dripping content out. And so the content that you might pick out that's relevant to your audience today is totally different than maybe another chamber somewhere else. That's why we're constantly publishing new content, more content, and different types of content. So we're excited about the direction, but this is very early in chamber today. We've only been doing this for 2 years. And so we have about 50 chambers of commerce across the United States and Canada that use it. They're all customizing it as best that they can. And one of the ways that you can make it original, one of the ways that is the most effective to make it original is to search through the articles for any what we call non-regional identifiers, where we talk about our community or this region, and make it specific to your part of the country, your region. The other way is to change the headline. That's a really simple thing that you can do to make it more original. It takes hardly any time at all. Those of you who are really good headline writers, you can crank it out, no problem. You can think about a different way to position the same content. Another way I already mentioned in talking to Joan and her question, and that it was, let's send this out to people who may be able to provide you original quotes in your from your membership. And this is a way to engage them and for them to also be published in your blog and in your newsletter. And they'll value that very much as a member.
Yes, absolutely. One last comment, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Jerry, you had something?
Yes, Kyle, as a comment for Kyle.
Sure.
Number one, yeah, I was really amazed or really excited when you said, when you stop talking about your members' problems, you become irrelevant. I think this is one of the biggest challenges faced by most of the chambers, not only in the films, but also in other chambers, in the sense that their activities or their events are not really relaying the message or the content that we want to address. And that's exactly the reason why their own members don't find it relevant for them to join the chamber, because their needs are not being addressed. Now, with your 4-quadrant thing, there are 4 chamber communities that we are really addressing here in every chamber organization. So I think we need to balance our content as far as relaying the message of our postings on Facebook, social media. We need to address like the government thing, the economy, and that's one sector only of our chamber. But most of our postings in social media are really more in events and programs, which is only attracting 1/4 of our target market. So we have to spread it out And these guidelines are really very useful, Kyle, in our upcoming strategic planning sessions, that each chamber will be undertaking. If you can provide us with a simple matrix, a checklist, wherein it will guide the walkthrough type of event planning or program planning for each and every chamber, so that we will continue to be staying relevant to our communities that we serve.
Thank you, Jerry. I just put a link in the chat, kylesexton.com/map. I saw several comments and references to the 4-quadrant structure that you all enjoyed. And you can get a complimentary 45-minute video training at kylesexton.com/map, and share that with your team and with other board members. And it's really helpful to have everyone understand that you're running 4 different chambers. That will really help, and that exercise will really help in your own determination of your strategic planning. It's a tool that I use for every strategic planning facilitation that I do, so that we can understand where our gaps are and where our members are. So if they're more in one quadrant or another, that can be really helpful for us to know those facts. I also do surveys to chamber members to help them to identify what to help the chamber better understand what quadrant they're all in. And if you like Chamber Today, you'll probably really like Enjoin. Enjoin is a quiz funnel that engages businesses, asks them questions, and then tells them what kind of member they are. Are they a connector? Are they a destination, Main Street business? Are they a leader, or are they a stakeholder? And then makes a recommendation for how to engage with the chamber. So I'm sorry about that, Lois. Maybe put a www on there, or an HTTPS on that to get to, let me pull that up myself and I'll put the correct link in there. Sometimes that happens when I don't put the www in there. I'll put the correct link in there for you. Thank you for that comment though, Jerry.
Yeah, you're welcome. Dr. Fatima, maybe you can get hold of the link, and again, we share it to the executive.
Yeah, right. And we're recording this anyway, so we can.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Save all of these as well. Well, Kyle, on behalf of COFACC and all our chamber partners, thank you so much for this enlightening and informative and inspiring session. We've learned a lot, and definitely that can help us with our membership, with our growth and our direction, because it's something that's totally new. I mean, it's, kind of a different perspective, but also giving us the tools to do that. So can we give a big round of applause for Kyle? Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Fatima.